I'm Dana Moriello, and you're listening to This Is a Thing, the podcast where I interview entrepreneurs who started unusual businesses about how they made their wild ideas happen. Today, we're talking to Gene Nifenecker II, better known as King Gene, founder of Balloon Kings. Here's Gene's wild idea: selling balloons. Not through a big box store or discount store, but a neighborhood spot with personal service, huge inventory, and the highest quality. Now, I wanted to talk to Gene because I am a super fan. I live nearby his first store, and no special occasion in our family is complete without balloons to celebrate it from the king. I love the product, but I wanted to know, what are balloons like as a business? How does someone even get into this line of work? We're going to talk about three key decisions in Gene's journey. First, the decision to leave his family sign-making business. Second, the decision to get into the balloon business. And third, the decision to grow through franchising. Enjoy the conversation. Start at the beginning. Your grandfather was also an entrepreneur. You come from a long line of entrepreneurs. He had a sign-making business on the Upper West Side where you worked. Start by telling me about his business.
He was the local sign guy. He started off doing the parking garage signage for like the 1 hour, 2 hour, up to 3 hour, and went from doing 3 or 4 of them to almost half of Manhattan. He did the Waldorf Astoria for the poster boards, and he just kept growing from there.
And what does that mean? These are hand-painted signs?
That's when they were hand-painted signs, yes.
Wow.
He tried to put a paintbrush in my hand. He kept trying, and my father said, no, give him a hammer. He likes using and banging things. So I went to actually more of the fabrication side then. But I was only like 7 when he put the painting brush in my hand.
Wow. So what was the first job that you had for the family business?
My father then branched off, and he wanted to go into a different direction, working on the real estate side of signage, where we did the barricades that went around the buildings that are under construction. He was the first one to decorate the first bridge back in 1984. I was there, helped building the frames at 15, 16, 17 years old, all the way up until I went into the Marine Corps at 17.
Wow. And so you go to the Marines, you get out of the Marines, and are you thinking you're going to rejoin this family business?
I was actually not even thinking about it until the re-enlistment physical right after Desert Storm, and they diagnosed me with stage 3, similar to Lance Armstrong, the bicyclist. Mm-hmm. So after I was in my recovery, I was kind of like, I've been around the world 3 times. I've seen a lot of things, combat action. Came back with 10 fingers, 10 toes, 2 eyes, and a nose. I won the Super Bowl. Yeah, I'm going to move on now.
So I can understand why it's time for a new chapter post-Marines. Are you considering that post-Marines chapter might be going back to the family business?
I was still in recovery. It was a long recovery time.
Yeah.
So instead of going back into the family business, running up and down 30-foot ladders, going up in boom trucks, I was to manage the sales team with the production team, with the fabrication team, the installation team, scheduling, which I learned a lot from there, and then was in meetings with my father. You may know some of the names of the Zeckendorfs, Milstein, Macklow, Trump, Davis and Partners. We were in 30-foot long construction tables out of oak at a construction meeting. I learned a lot. A lot. Yeah.
And why did you eventually decide to then move on from working with your dad in the family business and do your own thing?
As my father stepped away from my grandfather, I then stepped away from mine. And in 2008, 2009, when the market crashed, I was already in the middle of that real estate side again, because that's, I knew, but I was on the B level, not the A level. And when they got crushed on their funding, the first people that you let go is the sign company. And between the contracts that I had, I got stuck for 250.
You said you liked the business your dad was in, but you said, like him and his father before him, you want to do it on your own. So you're going to do a similar model for real estate, slightly different customer segment within real estate. Cool. But unfortunately, the customer segment you picked in the financial crisis got hit. What are you thinking at the time when that happens?
I lost everything. They foreclosed on my house, took my truck, my tools. I was that guy in the Home Depot parking lots looking for a side to, take care of my family. I was a landscaper helper. Just being a Marine, I had that, I don't give up.
So you didn't give up. You're taking on these part-time landscaping, construction jobs, making ends meet. What's the moment where you transition from that phase of your career to saying, I'm going to start another business?
I didn't at that point. I was still in the place of, my head was twisted. And a person that we used to do signs for asked me to come in to organize her balloon store. She knows of my organizational skills because when we were in the sign business with my father, we did JetBlue nationwide. So you just can't have, your nuts and your bolts and kind of rummage through things as you're trying to deal with someone that's nationwide. So everything was organized for one size nut, what size washer, what size lock washer, all the pins that go along with the welding and all of that going down the line. So I'm like, I'm a Marine, why would I go into a balloon store? But she kept pressing me because my thing is organization. Within 4 hours of just the customers walking in, the smile, the occasions, the milestones, I'm still getting goosebumps on my arm to this day, and it was 17 years ago when my eyes opened up for this. And I then took what I learned from there, which was out on Long Island, and I opened it up here in New York City on the Upper West Side. And as soon as I saw the customer appreciation as one would come into the balloon store, it was different from going into a party city. When you'd go up to the representative that's in front of you and you'd ask them for, my daughter's looking for a unicorn, and the person behind the counter would just go, they're up on the wall. And going back to my grandfather's generation of, as soon as someone walks in, you greet them as the person. You don't greet them as, what do you want? So I took the whole model of store experience and twisted it 180 degrees, and I asked someone how their day's going, what's going on. And then that leads into, I'm down here for this person, that person, and then the experience begins.
So you differentiate based on creating that great experience. The thing that gets your foot in the door in the industry, it sounds like, is your ability to organize. And so it sounds like you got your chops in organization, learned the importance of that in the practice when working with your father, organizing those nuts and bolts. This woman saw you in that capacity. So she's running a balloon shop. You come in. That day that you came in, I have to imagine you didn't know that this one visit was going to change the rest of your life.
Not at all. It would, within 4 hours, it totally turned my life around. And then my wheels kicked back into gear again after hitting financial rock bottom. It was eye-opening, and it was a beautiful moment.
What were some of the things that came to you in those first 4 hours when you were there that made you think, oh, there's something here to dig into?
Growing up, when I was with my grandfather and my father, it was always personalized, individualized, and customized for that one specific person that's coming in or you're on the phone with. Each building is different, each sign is different, even though the materials are always the same. Then taking it with a Costco model of having everything in stock at all times. With the internet coming around, I then spun it with a 1-800-Flowers twist of being able to order balloons online. And I believe that I was probably the first one that just stuck with balloons.
Yeah. So you saw an opportunity when you were in the store for organization, having a lot of inventory, ordering online, great customer service. Sounds like a lot of places where you can differentiate. There's a huge difference between seeing an opportunity as a passive observation and then seeing an opportunity as something that you then go act on and build a business around. What was it that made you think not only is there something here, but I'm going to do it. I'm building a business in this space.
I just did it. I had an objective, and I went for it.
And did you think that you wanted to start a business and you were just looking for the type of business to start? Were you already in the headspace of wanting to be an entrepreneur again and start a new business?
Visiting her store kicked me back into gear again. Watching my grandfather, watching my father, My great-grandfather was actually brought over by the Delmonico's family back at the turn of the century to open up the first Delmonico's restaurant down on Beaver Street in Manhattan. So it's always been in our blood, in our DNA to do that.
Wow, so it's almost like you had this remembering who you are moment. I am an entrepreneur. I come from a long line of entrepreneurs. So this is my destiny. This is what I'm going to do.
As I'm on one of those standing lawnmowers, 2 days later, doing landscaping stuff, the gears just went. How to organize it. And the other store that was there, it was like things were out of jars. It was nothing against the owner that had that store, but I just saw it in a different model.
It's one thing, obviously, to have a desire to start a business. It's another thing to then execute on it. Tell us about operationally, what is the next thing that you did when you stepped off that lawnmower and said, okay, I'm going to do it? What does doing it mean? What did you do next?
I was then looking into the manufacturers, the wholesalers, reverse engineering it, I guess you can almost say. So as I'm passing that set of balloons that is inside the bag, where do I get the bags from? What material am I putting with the bags that say, please be a good balloon parent? To make sure that you either toss them or put them in the recyclable bin. And making sure that my wholesalers and manufacturers are able to keep up with the demand. And it was a little bit of a bumpy road to make sure that I found those right manufacturers that are able to keep up with the right amount of color for my inventory. So like if you were just to say the color white, I've got 1,000 white balloons in my store at almost all time.
And while you're getting smart on the industry, are you doing this independently? It's all your own research and phone calls?
Yeah, and in 2010, the internet was not as easy as it is now. There wasn't AI, so there was a lot of long hours doing homework.
And how did you put together the capital to be able to launch?
I went and spoke with a bunch of friends and family, and they helped me out with putting together enough money to get the lease and help out with the inventory, painting, construction. Because I'm very hands-on, I did the construction myself.
And when you launched, what was your personal goal for Balloon Kings and yourself? If this is an enormous success, what were you hoping would then be true?
Just an income again at that point. I was tired of, is it raining for 7 days straight to where there's no landscaping and I'm in a parking lot trying to find employment while there's a bunch of other people that are there as well.
What made you confident that it could bring you this income? You talked about how it's a good business philosophically, but there's just the nuts and bolts of the back of the envelope math that this is going to deliver you the income that you were looking for. How'd you think about that?
I did do my homework on the Upper West Side, which when you break it down, families of 1, 2, 3 or more in 2010, 2011, when I was doing my homework, is the highest per capita. So that's where I decided to plant my castle. Then I went old-fashioned, shoe top to black top, went to all the restaurants, and instead of just saying, here's my business card, I would do something a little bit different. I would bring them balloons.
Do you remember the first time that you got a big order and the income actually started coming in and how that felt?
It wasn't the first big order. It was a young woman coming into my store, and I could see the stress on her face. She goes, I just need one 18-inch balloon, please, white. I'm like, no problem. Blew up the balloon, I put the ribbon on there, put it in a bag, and then she starts reaching for her wallet or money inside of her pocket. She goes, oh my God, I just left it all in the car in the parking garage. And there was just a sense of something. I'm like, fine, don't worry about it. It's $3.50. She goes, thank you so much. I'll send it over to you. I'm like, don't worry about it. About 2 months later, she sends me a personalized email going, thank you very much. Not even thinking of what day it was, that it was 9/11. She goes, and I get choked up every time I tell the story. My uncle brings me down and we write a care and a prayer or a message and we send it up to my dad. Goosebumps.
Yeah.
That was the most important thing. That is what I live for. Yes, the money comes with it. And it's not about the big orders. It's that one special order that just, and I've done it many times again, and they're just all beautiful. They're all beautiful.
Yeah.
I know my cogs. I know my overhead. And for that one balloon, made that perfect, made that person feel whole on that one day.
That's an incredible story. You got me.
Yeah.
That's very moving, and I can see the sense of mission and the sense of purpose and how that story, I'm sure of many stories, that one in particular, just validating, man, you're really doing something important here. Did you anticipate that? When you first started this business, would you have guessed that's what would happen, what would make you proud? No.
It happens at least 2 or 3 times a year of someone coming in. We also help out Make-A-Wish Foundation, which we know that when it goes through Make-A-Wish, it's for someone who's going through something substantial. And even just customers from the neighborhood of all the life things that happen.
It's so interesting to hear that when you first started this business, that was not one of the stated goals that you had in your head or imagined, but it seems to have surprised you and become the thing that makes you most proud.
Yeah, we've got gigs or customers come into the store to just buy one balloon all the time. And we've had a couple contracts. We were commissioned by Hilton in 2018 for Pride to go down and do it in DC twice, and then once here in New York for Pride for the parade on the float. Then right after, A&E did an event to where they were unable to bring in any real displays or there wasn't enough manufacturing time. We did that gig, and it was very large. It was $65,000.
It's clear how you got the neighborhood business because you are in the neighborhood. You're walking into the stores with your business card and your balloons. That makes sense to me. How do you transition as a small business to then getting these huge clients and these really big orders?
Networking. It's all about networking. So I would go in saying, who's the event planner, or like, what event coordinators do you know, or event planners? That line worked more with when we went to the hotels. We do the Plaza, the Peninsula, and dozens more in New York City, and we promise them same-day delivery if it needs to be. And it just snowballed into that. And then working with the schools, we have our governmental, which is our schools. We have our coordinators or party planners, so it can go from someone's baby naming up to branding on a product, to just the individual side of it, and a lot of the holidays.
Well, Gene, I want to end on the forward looking because we got to the place where you're growing your business through all this networking, all these big accounts, but the latest way you're growing your business is franchising. How do you decide to go on this franchising journey?
I was at the point where I was comfortable. A lot of sales were coming in, orders going out, people are being happy. And as I'm delivering an arrangement with my business card, someone happens to says, so you're a franchise? I'm like, no, it never even clicked inside my brain. That is a different logo. It looks professionally done. I'm like, thanks, I did it. Then I started just looking into the process and went to a couple different trade shows, which were at the Javits at that point. Started asking 1 or 2 other people, friends, but they didn't know much. So I just went online and started looking at classes, found a franchise forum that they do up in Philly for people who think that they may have something. And it took about 5-6 years to finally put it all together because
Wow.
I didn't borrow any money for this. I'm still self-funding it all myself.
What made you decide through what you learned about franchising that it was the right decision for you to do next?
Because there are a lot of people that say that they do balloons. There's a lot of box store, and then there's a lot of dollar store. There's no in the middle. And I saw the market for the middle to where you can have a brick and mortar storefront, of about 1,200 square foot is that individual that is looking for not the dollar store, not the box store, but they're looking for balloons that are able to go for the Hilton Hotel. But the DIYers can't get into the Hilton Hotel because they don't have the right, or they don't have workers' comp, certificate of insurance, all of the little things that are behind the scenes that most people don't know about when you have a company. And with the background from my grandfather and my father, I knew about those things.
And so you see the need in the market. You could have gone out and build more locations yourself. Were you drawn to helping others start their businesses instead of doing all corporate-owned locations as you expanded?
Absolutely. I know that my one store brought fulfillment for myself, for my family, for helping others. And instead of just taking over and making more stores, I know that it's better for others to do the same. We just opened up Houston. The whole family was there, and a customer came in and needed to get some breast cancer awareness balloons for a friend who just came out of the hospital, saw what was going on, and she was, again, then just astounded between everything that goes along with being in the balloon things.
That was Gene Nifenecker talking about his journey building Balloon Kings. Here are my favorite 3 takeaways from that conversation. First, the power of networking. Gene got all of his clients from networking, literally just pounding the pavement and walking into restaurants with his business card and asking for referrals. Even that first balloon store owner who invited him in to organize was someone that he met networking in his old job. Second, think creatively about how to leverage your strengths. Gene never would have guessed that he'd be running a balloon empire. One of his greatest strengths was organization, and he applied it everywhere he went. It was exactly that strength that would surprisingly open up the doors for him to have a successful future with balloons. Third, sometimes you just need to be reminded who you are. Gene was having a really rough patch and doubting himself. Then he walked into a balloon store and got a burst of energy. He remembered who he is. He is an entrepreneur. He comes from a line of entrepreneurs. The next steps were suddenly clear. I'm Dana Moriello, and I can't wait to see you next week on This Is a Thing.